Magic Earth, Chapter 8. The march south began under a sky that looked as if it had given up on being a sky at all. There was no blue, no faint gold of morning, not even the thin silver line that sometimes hinted at a distant sun. Only a pale, sourceless brightness, as if daytime were being remembered, not lived. The group moved in silence. 3 Mage-Kings, 1 exile, 1 boy, and a tired troop, forming a long, wavering line across the frozen plain. Jack walked near the center, listening only to the steady crunch of boots sinking into dry snow. For hours, he watched the backs of Arrow, Mutar, and Nopsum, their heavy cloaks crusted with ice, their heads bowed not in majesty, but in weariness. The legends he'd grown up with now looked like old men simply trying to survive cold and fear. And there was the silence. Not the natural quiet of winter, softened by distance and wind. A strange, constructed silence, as if someone had carefully removed the sounds the world should have. Jack felt it wasn't just absence, it was watchfulness, like Noyle was listening to every step they took. He tried to push the thoughts away, but everything led back to Eldoria. To his father at the tavern table, opening a crumpled note. To Melanie shutting windows that couldn't stop mist. To Liz repeating tiny illusion tricks just to shove fear a few inches away. Leaving them all behind was a pain that no longer fit inside his chest. Until he couldn't bear it. "We need to talk." The words cut through the cold air. The 3 Mage-Kings stopped almost at the same time. Not like commanders interrupted, but like men caught off guard. Spes turned only his head, not stopping Jack, only watching. It felt like he was evaluating everyone at once. Jack stepped forward, snow cracking under his boots. "If we're really in alliance now, then no more half-truths. No more legends, we have to be honest, completely honest." Iroh drew in a long breath. Mutar and Nopsum shared a look that held both shame and exhaustion. They were clearly not used to anyone speaking to them this way, much less a 16-year-old boy. But none of them objected. "What do you want to know?" Nopsum asked quietly. "The truth," Jack answered. "About your powers, about the plants, about what you could really do. The world believed you were the greatest mages alive, but after what I saw in Eldoria, I don't believe anything anymore." Mutar looked away. Nopsum dragged a hand over his face, resigned. Then Nopsum said, "I never had magic." The silence grew heavier. Nearby soldiers actually paused mid-step for a second. Jack felt something hit his chest, dry and hard. "What do you mean?" he whispered. "I was born with sharp perception," Nopsum explained. "I could read people, anticipate intentions. That became my power. When I inherited the root of the forgotten, it gave me small glimpses, an intuition about fading memories, crooked decisions. But real magic? Never." Mutar stepped forward, like someone taking his place beside a confessed prisoner. "Then let me continue. Everyone believed I shaped forms, changed matter, forged deep illusions. In reality, the variable leaf let me alter small things, shadows, details, surfaces, nothing grand. The rest was theater and symbolism." Something broke inside Jack. The stories from his childhood, the hopes of entire kingdoms. All of it began to feel like a carefully painted lie. His gaze moved to Iroh. "And you?" Arrow took longer than the others. His eyes went toward the horizon, as if the answer were hiding far ahead of them. "I was born with a thread of wind magic," he confessed. "Weak, almost useless. I spent years training to strengthen what little I had. When I received the ether flower, it amplified that small spark, gave me control over winds, resistance, sharper senses. But I was never what the legends said. I just did as much as I could, inside my limits. Rage rose in Jack like ice that burned. "People believed you were strong enough to stop all this," he said, his voice tight. "And you let everyone believe it." "Sometimes belief is the only thing that keeps a kingdom standing," Muhtar murmured, tired. Jack hated that answer. It sounded cowardly. He took a breath, trying to stop his hands from shaking. "Airo. My family. Did you see them? Any sign?" Airo seemed to shrink a little. "Jack. The attack came fast. The creatures arrived with the night pulled forward. We saved who we could. We lost many. I didn't see your family. I won't lie to you." Jack lowered his head, teeth clenched. "The creatures prefer the dark," Airo added. "They rise when the light falls. Noil uses night as a weapon." "And if the mist takes everything?" Jack asked. It was Nopsum who answered. "Then magic earth ends, not with explosions or fire, but with emptiness. People without fear, without questions, without will. The world rots from the inside." A chill climbed Jack's spine. It was exactly what he had felt since the storm. A growing, quiet emptiness trying to slip through the cracks of his mind. "Have any of you ever seen Noil?" he pressed. Airo shook his head. "No sign. Not from me. Not from anyone." Then Spes spoke. "He's testing you. Testing borders, creatures, darkness. When he knows exactly where each kingdom breaks, he appears." A strange stab hit Jack's chest. Not pain. Something like the feeling that the world was slightly out of place. He pressed his hand over his heart. Spes watched the gesture, then turned toward the Mage-Kings. "You swore an alliance," he said. "Now you need to accept my leadership if you want to survive." The Mage-Kings looked at one another. After a few seconds, they nodded. "What's the plan?" Muhtar asked. Spes lifted his chin. "We unite the 3 plants. We need them together." Airo raised a hand, cutting in. "There's no need to go back to my castle. I already brought the ether flower with me. Hidden. Safe." A low murmur of relief ran through the group. Jack, however, felt his stomach twist. Too many secrets. Not enough truths. "And how exactly do we unite them?" he asked. Airo seemed to recover a bit of his old confidence. "I know how. Ancient texts, forgotten theories. If the 3 are brought together, a breach will open. A real chance." Muhtar and Nopsum exhaled, almost relieved. Jack did not. Something was wrong, and he had no idea what it was. The group resumed their march, descending the white plain toward Nopsum's castle, toward the future, toward the ritual, toward a betrayal none of them could see yet. The road to Nopsum's castle felt longer than any they had traveled so far. Not because of the distance, but because of the weight they carried. Truths revealed too late, and secrets still pulsing uncomfortably between every conversation, every silence. The wind blew from the south, cold, abrasive, carrying a metallic scent Jack had begun to associate with the mist. Noil's advance was no longer something in the distance. It was a constant presence, a hum beneath their ribs, a quiet threat marching beside them with patient steps. The troop moved in a tighter formation now, as if any open space between them was an invitation for the darkness. Airo drew closer to Jack as they walked. "You're still unsettled," the Mage-King observed without judgment. Jack didn't answer immediately. His eyes were fixed ahead, on the horizon where the sky had taken on a faint yellow tint, as if stained with sick light. "There are too many secrets," he finally said. "Too much being hidden. And now, it feels like everything depends on something none of us truly understand." Airo exhaled a short, tired laugh. "Secrets aren't treasures, Jack. They're debts. And we all have more debts than magic." Jack didn't know whether that made him feel better or worse. Ahead of them, Spes walked a few steps in front, his heavy cloak sweeping the snow. He never turned when others spoke, but something about the stillness of his shoulders made Jack sure he heard everything. Always listening, always calculating. When the walls of Nopsum's castle finally appeared, pale stone rising through the thin southern fog, Jack felt something shift inside him. Not fear, something stranger. A kind of muffled quiet, as if this place had been slowly drained over years. Not by violence, but by a steady erosion of hope. The structure was tall and narrow, with long vertical windows that reflected the white light. A fortress built not only to watch the land, but perhaps to keep watch over its own king. Nopsum lifted his chin, pride and sorrow competing on his face. "It still stands," he murmured. "At least that much." Soldiers opened the main gate, recognizing the mixed banners. The courtyard inside was almost empty. Citizens moved slowly, some staring into nothing, others walking in half circles as if trying to remember what they were supposed to be doing. Jack felt pressure in his chest. It reminded him too much of the effects of the mist. Subtle, soft, but unmistakably there. "We must go to the Chamber of the Root," Nopsum said. "Now." The chamber lay beneath the east tower, behind 3 reinforced doors and a narrow hallway where only 2 could walk side by side. Torches flickered along the walls, but the flames looked reluctant, as though the stones absorbed light faster than the fire could produce it. When they finally reached the room, Jack saw the root of the forgotten for the first time. It was smaller than he expected. A twisted wooden structure, its pale veins hardened like stone. It grew directly from the rock floor, as if it had existed long before the castle had been built. Cracks spread around it, but there was no dust on the ground. The chamber felt preserved, untouched, like something tending itself. Iroh pulled a small grimoire from his cloak, its pages filled with old handwriting. Ink here, charcoal there. "The root is weaker than I imagined," he murmured. "This matches what we saw in the north. Noil is draining everything, including them." Spes stepped closer, studying the plant with tight eyes. "We need it intact," he said, "even if it looks dormant. It's part of the whole." Nopsum brushed his fingers gently along the twisted wood. "It has always been stubborn," he said, "never responded fully to me." Jack swallowed hard. "So, how do we know it will work?" Nopsum gave a sad little smile. "We don't." It was an answer the entire world seemed to be repeating lately. Next, Iroh opened his cloak and revealed the ether flower. Jack expected something radiant, glowing, impossible to mistake for ordinary life. It wasn't. The flower looked fragile, its petals thin, almost translucent, trembling faintly with a dim blue luminescence. It seemed alive, but afraid. Mutar approached, tracing the air just above it. "When taken from the ground, it loses strength," he said. "And the journey here likely weakened it further." Iroh held his jaw firm. "I brought it because I trust no castle anymore. If Noil takes a capital, we lose everything." Jack stared at him, doubts rising like fog. He didn't trust that decision. Not at all. But he had no proof. Spes turned to the group. "We're missing only the variable leaf," he said. "Mutar's escort should arrive with it at dawn. Once the 3 are here, we begin the ritual." Mutar nodded, though his eyes looked hollow. "It always responded more to me than I ever did to it," he said. "I pray it's still whole." Jack folded his arms. "And how exactly do you plan to unite them?" Iroh spoke before Spes could answer. Ancient writings mention something called the convergence of living matter. The plants aren't weapons. They're fragments of something older, split apart to prevent any one kingdom from controlling the whole of it. He paused. "If we bring them together, they create a breach, a pause in the world's flow, a moment where decisions can be made without Noil's influence." Jack tried to absorb that. "And my role in this breach?" Silence. Spes stepped closer, gripping Jack's shoulder with a firm, grounding hand. "You're the point where magic fails," he said. "Where it breaks. Noil can't pass through you. If we carve out a space where his power doesn't work, you might be enough to stop him." Jack felt nauseous. "That sounds dangerous." "Everything is," Spes replied. "But it's our only chance." Mutar added, "And Iroh knows how to begin the process. He studied it for years. We're not walking in blind." "Not entirely," Nopsum completed. "Together, the plants can create a call, a spark that awakens Elian's ritual." Elian. The name echoed through the chamber like something listening underneath the stone. Jack felt the unease return, heavier, sharper. Something was wrong. Not just the mist, not just the monsters. Something right here, in the middle of them. But everyone believed in the plan. Everyone but him. Later, as the colorless daylight thinned toward evening, Spes concluded, "Tomorrow at first light, the three plants come together and the ritual begins. For now, rest. You'll need it." Jack still felt the world breathing crooked around him, but he nodded anyway, because even with distrust clawing at him, he had no other choice. Night fell over Nopsum's castle without warning. There was no gradual dimming, no warm hues fading into blue, no sigh of daylight slipping into darkness. The pale southern glow simply turned off. One moment, the courtyard held a thin, diffused light. The next, darkness settled between the stones like something poured into the cracks. Jack felt the shift the instant it happened. Not because he looked up, but because his body reacted first. A shiver along his spine. The old instinct that night was not the absence of light, but the presence of something that preferred to hide within it. Outside, torches burst into flame as guards rushed along the walls. Their eyes stayed fixed on the northern horizon, where the mist still rested like an enormous white wall. Motionless. Breathing slow. "The night came too fast," murmured a soldier beside Jack. Jack didn't answer. Each time darkness arrived early, he felt as if Noil were pulling magic earth a little closer into his grasp. High in one of the towers, the three Mage-Kings met with Spes to finalize the ritual's details. Jack had been invited to join them, but instead lingered a few steps behind the door, leaning against the cold stone wall. He could hear enough without seeing. Spes's voice was steady, too steady. "At dawn, the three plants will be brought to the central chamber. The variable leaf will arrive with Mutar's guard. The ether flower and the forgotten root are already here. We need a clean space. No interference." "Interference of what kind?" Mutar asked, suspicion edging his tone. "Of any kind," Spes replied. "Metal, weapons, symbols of conflict. Noil uses fear better than any sorcerer. If we want the breach to open without collapsing, the ritual must not become a battlefield. It must be a place of decision, not threat." "You're suggesting we go in unarmed?" Iroh sounded offended. "I'm saying that if you go armed," Spes countered, "you'll break the ritual before it begins. Or worse, give Noil an easy path through your fear." A silence followed. "Guards can remain outside," Nopsum said finally. "At the stairways. The ritual chamber stays clean." "Exactly," Spes affirmed. Jack closed his eyes. Weapons outside, plants inside, Spes at the center. It all made sense, and yet none of it felt right. When the meeting dispersed, Nopsum found Jack waiting in the corridor. "You didn't enter," the Mage-King noted, stopping beside him. "But you heard enough, I assume." "Heard enough to be more nervous than before," Jack muttered. Nopsum rested a hand against the stone, as if steadying himself. Up close, he looked older than he had in daylight. Dark circles deep under his eyes, a thin tremor beneath his breath. And yet, his gaze remained sharp. "You don't trust the ritual," he said, blunt as ever. "I don't trust things everyone accepts too quickly," Jack replied. "Yesterday you could barely admit your magic wasn't real. Today you're all ready to believe I'll turn into Elion because of 3 tired plants." Nopsum's lips curled into a faint, weary smile. "You have the right to be angry, and the right to doubt." He paused. "But you also deserve to know this. We're running out of choices. The world is shrinking. Roads vanish. Villages go silent. If this plan seems rushed, it's because we no longer have time. Or better heroes." Jack didn't like the word hero. He'd never asked to be one. He only wanted his family back. "Do you truly believe Elion can return?" he asked. Nopsum looked out the narrow window, into the night that swallowed everything. "I believe the world needs to remember why it stopped listening to him. Whether that means bringing him back, or simply tripping Noel for a moment, either would be more than what we have now." Jack couldn't argue with that. Later, Jack found Spes in the ritual chamber, a wide circular room at the heart of the castle. Spes worked with the precision of a craftsman, drawing interlocking circles on the floor, using a gray powder that didn't look like chalk or ash. Each ring touched another without touching, forming a pattern that felt both ancient and unstable. "What is that?" Jack asked from the doorway. Spes didn't startle. It was as if he knew Jack would come. "Memory marks," he said. "Not of what happened, but of what could have happened." Jack frowned. "That doesn't make sense." Spes gave a dry, humorless smile. "It does, to someone who spent too much time bending possibilities. Elion did it naturally. Noel learned the opposite." Jack stepped closer. "The opposite?" "Instead of opening paths, he seals them," Spes explained. "Instead of multiplying choices, he removes them, until only one remains: surrender." A chill ran over Jack's skin. It was exactly how he had felt since the storm, like the choice to go forward was shrinking. "And what am I in this drawing of yours?" he asked. Spes raised his eyes, meeting Jack's. "You are the point where no path obeys anyone, not Elion, not Noel, not me." Jack didn't know whether to feel honored or terrified. Jack wandered around the chamber, letting his eyes settle on the large tapestries hanging from the walls. Each depicted scenes from legends he barely remembered. Mages among fantastic creatures, ancient battles, pacts made near chasms. But 2 images repeated across several. A griffin, lion-bodied, eagle-headed, wings wide like storm carriers. In one tapestry, the griffin stood behind a mage, guarding him. In another, it perched atop a tower, staring downward as if waiting for someone to decide. A strange tightness formed in Jack's stomach. "Griffins. Do they still exist?" he asked. "Some," Spes replied. "Old creatures. They don't belong to any kingdom or any particular magic. They gather in places where the world remembers what it could have been." "And do they follow Elion or Noel?" Spes didn't look up. "They follow whoever takes the lead first." That answer helped nothing. Orders spread through the castle shortly after. "At dawn, no weapons enter the ritual chamber," Spes declared. The Mage-Kings reinforced it. Guards were instructed to stand only outside the doors, at stairways, and along the corridors leading into the chamber. Every blade, every spear, every metal object was to remain at the entrance. Whispers rippled through the soldiers. Unarmed? In the heart of the castle? Now? If this is what saves the world, so be it. Jack overheard bits and pieces as he moved down the hall. The castle felt subtly crooked that night, as if its stones had been laid over an unanswered question. He tried to sleep. He lay on a soft bed in a guest room, under clean blankets, but the body refused to rest. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw mist swallowing Eldoria's streets, covering the tavern door, erasing Lys's voice. When he finally drifted off, He dreamed of roots crawling beneath the castle, twining around his ankles, pulling him downward. Not tree roots. Something else. Something that wanted him still. He woke sweating, heart racing. Outside, a gray light hinted at dawn. Ritual day. He rose, feeling with certainty that the world had shifted slightly overnight. Not enough to see, only enough to feel. Dressed, breathing shallowly, he walked toward the ritual chamber. One thought kept hammering inside him. Something is wrong. Not just the mist. Not just the monsters. Something is wrong right here, among us. He couldn't name it yet, but he was about to. Dawn arrived without colors. There was no pink, no gold, not even the faint blue that usually preceded the harshest cold. The sky above Nopsum's castle looked like a single slab of washed-out gray, as if someone had erased the sun from Magic Earth's design and forgotten to redraw it. Jack walked through the corridors feeling like he had slept only minutes, though he knew hours had passed. His body felt heavy, his mind alert. Every footstep echoed as if the entire castle were listening. When he neared the ritual chamber, he saw movement. Soldiers lined both sides of the hallway, placing their weapons into neat rows. Swords, spears, axes, knives. Everything arranged carefully, almost reverently, as if the weapons were offerings to an unknown god. Orders of the Mage-Kings, a guard told Jack when he noticed the boy's expression. No weapons inside. Jack nodded, throat tight. At the end of the hall, Muhtar approached with a small escort. At the center of the group was a reinforced container, carried by 2 men, wrapped in thin chains marked with dark symbols. The variable leaf. Muhtar walked beside it like someone accompanying a wounded friend. She resisted the journey? Spes asked, stepping out of the chamber, his dark cloak folding around him like a shadow. Well enough, Muhtar replied. Or so I pray. Spes gestured for the container to be brought inside. The guard set it gently on the stone floor of the circular chamber. Arrow was already there, holding the ether flower carefully. Nopsum stood near the root of the Forgotten, which they had brought from the underground hall during the night. Jack entered last, and the moment he stepped inside, the air changed. It wasn't just cold now. It was dense, as if the space were being evaluated by invisible eyes. The Griffin tapestries on the walls looked different in this light, more watchful, more awake. Close the doors, Spes ordered. The guards pushed the heavy wooden slabs together. A dull thud closed the room off from the world. The torches flickered in their wall niches, throwing trembling light across the symbols Spes had drawn on the floor. Spes moved to the center, where the largest circle awaited. Place the plants, he said. Arrow stepped forward first, setting the ether flower precisely where one of the inner marks indicated. Muhtar opened the reinforced container and revealed the variable leaf, many layered blades of living matter that shifted colors depending on how the light touched them. Nopsum guided the stone base of the root of the Forgotten into its designated place. When all 3 were arranged around the central symbol, Jack felt something impossible. The air stepped back, as if the world held its breath. At that moment, a soldier burst into the room, gasping. Mage-Kings. A Griffin is approaching the castle. Silence swallowed the chamber. Jack felt his heart trip. A Griffin. The tapestries flashed through his mind. The guardian on the tower. The watcher behind the mage. Arrow's hand moved instinctively to his belt, only then remembering he carried no weapon. How close? Nopsum demanded. From which direction? From the south, sir. Very high. It's descending now. The archers request orders. Jack waited for Arrow to shout, "Attack!" But that word never came. Spes raised a hand. "No one attacks," he said, voice firm. "The Griffin is part of the ritual." Every head snapped toward him. "Part of the ritual?" Muhtar echoed, stunned. Elion never walked between worlds alone, Spes explained. The oldest records mention a griffin accompanying him when the world needed reminding of its possibilities. Its presence now is no accident. It is an answer. Or a test, Iroh muttered. Spes met his gaze. If you shoot it, you ruin any chance we have. Inform the archers. They lower their bows. The soldier hesitated. But, sir... It is a direct order, Nopsum said sharply. From all of us. The soldier bowed and sprinted away. As soon as the door closed again, Jack's unease sharpened so violently he almost staggered. Something was wrong. Deeply wrong. Not with the griffin. Not with the plants. Not with the ritual. With Spes. The thought hit him with such force it left him breathless. His heart pounded out of rhythm, his fingers tingling, the edges of his vision narrowing for a moment before clearing. His entire body screamed that the griffin's arrival wasn't the danger. The danger was standing in the center of the room. The sound came next. A heavy, rhythmic beating, wings pushing air with the strength of a storm. Then a low vibration rolled through the floor, through the walls, through Jack's bones. The torches flickered wildly. The griffin was landing. Jack closed his eyes for a heartbeat, and in that fraction of a moment dozens of memories collided. The storm pulled forward, the mist swallowing Eldoria. Creatures testing them. Nights arriving too early. The plants being gathered. Weapons left outside. Point after point, all connected by one thread. Spes. Spes telling them when to run, when to stay, when to trust, when to go unarmed. And now Spes telling them not to fear the griffin. It all snapped into place. His eyes flew open. The side door burst open. Soldiers formed 2 columns, instinctively giving space. And then the griffin stepped inside. Massive, magnificent, its lion-heavy body moving with controlled strength, its wings half-folded, its golden feathered head turning slowly as it examined each person in the chamber. But it was the eyes that froze Jack. Not rage, not peace, attention, an intense, calculating awareness. Spes walked toward the beast without hesitation. "It's all right," he said back to the others. "It knows why it has come." And that sentence, that was the final crack, the final proof. The world tilted inside Jack's mind. The pressure in his chest exploded into clarity. He didn't think. He didn't consider. He didn't weigh consequences. He simply shouted, "Spes is Noil!" The words slammed through the chamber, bouncing off the stone walls like breaking glass. For a heartbeat, the world held still. Iroh turned, stunned. Mutar froze mid-step. Nopsum went completely rigid. The griffin's wings tensed. Spes did not turn. Not in shock, not in denial, not in confusion. He turned because he was moving. Too fast. Far too fast. In one fluid motion, Spes extended his arm toward the plants. The gray powder on the ground rose into a swirling storm, blinding everyone for a heartbeat. When the air cleared, he already held all 3, the ether flower between his fingers. The variable leaf wrapped around his wrist, the root of the forgotten ripped from its stone base with impossible strength. "No!" Mutar lunged forward, but the griffin opened its wings wide, unleashing a blast of wind that knocked him back. Iroh tried to circle around. Nopsum raised a hand as if still hoping to command minds. Nothing worked. No weapons, no magic strong enough. No time. Spes climbed onto the griffin's back with the ease of someone who had done it before. The plants pulsed weakly at his side. He looked at Jack once. No hatred, no affection. Just an ancient exhaustion. "You gave me exactly what I needed," he said. "The rest belongs to the world." The griffin leapt. For a moment Jack thought it would crash into the doorframe, but its wings folded at the perfect angle, and the creature shot through the corridor, claws scraping stone. Outside, a massive wing beat echoed. One, then another, growing distant. Jack ran to the chamber entrance, reaching a narrow window just in time to see a dark silhouette rising into the gray sky. Small enough to escape, large enough to haunt him forever. The ether flower, the variable leaf, the root of the forgotten, all gone. Together. In the hands of the man he'd just named aloud, Spes, Noil, or something between the two. Behind Jack, the Mage-Kings stood speechless. Magic Earth had lost its anchors. All three of them. What remained was a growing emptiness, spreading faster than before. Jack gripped the stone windowsill, chest burning. For the first time he hoped Spes had been wrong about him. Because if Jack was truly the point where magic failed, then he was also the point where the entire world might break.